Okay, sounds good.
All right. Good morning. We are calling the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll take a roll call, please.
Just a moment here. I'm opening up my document. Carter,
Here.
Latham,
Here.
McDonough,
Here.
Ortega.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I skipped McGuire.
Here. She's here though.
Thank you. Reinhardt
Here.
and Modest Castile.
Here. We're all shaking the kinks out after a 3-day weekend. We'll all go on mute and have Commissioner Ortega lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. We have the agenda of January 18th is presented for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ortega. Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Latham,
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire
Aye.
and Modest Castile.
Aye. And we have the minutes from January 11th presented for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Thank you. Latham,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire
Aye.
and Modest Castile.
Aye. Before we move into the proclamation, I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of the whole Ramsey County Board and acknowledge the recent passing of esteemed civil rights leader who fought for more than half a century on behalf of the Indigenous people in Minnesota and around the world. Clyde Bellecourt passed away last Tuesday morning from cancer in his home in Minneapolis. His legacy includes being a leader in the Native American struggle for civil rights and the founder of the American Indian movement that sought to grapple with issues of police brutality and discrimination against Native Americans. Clyde Bellecourt served as AIM's national director and led protests, including the trial of broken treaties in 1972 caravan from the West Coast to Washington, D.C. to demand Native American sovereignty. He led calls to eliminate Native American names of sports teams, focusing on the Washington Redskins and the Atlanta Braves. He co-founded the Legal Rights Center and the Heart for the Earth Survival School. He was widely celebrated, an effective and influential advocate for Native American rights. Clyde Bellecourt was born and raised on the White Earth Indian Reservation, his Ojibwe name, Nigan Wiwe Widun, which means thunder before the storm, living up to his fierce advocacy on behalf of the Native American Indian community, paving the way for others, and leaving our world a better place. So if we could just take a moment of silence and recognition of Clyde Bellecourt. Thank you. And appropriately so, we're going to move to a proclamation read by Commissioner Reinhardt, a day of racial healing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm truly humbled and honored to be able to present this proclamation. And thank you so much for that prelude or whatever for Clyde Bellecourt, truly an amazing person. The proclamation reads, whereas we have all witnessed racial divisiveness rising in America's urban, rural, suburban, and tribal communities today that threatens the very core of this great country's unified front. And whereas divisions along racial and other lines have created an increasingly polarized society in need of healing. And whereas we understand and recognize that there is a racial divide in our country, and all must work earnestly to heal the wounds created by racial, ethnic, and religious bias and build an equitable and just society in which all people can thrive. And whereas nonprofit organizations are uniquely positioned to bridge these divides, bring together communities, and work to change longstanding systems and policies that benefit some groups while marginalizing, excluding, or harming others. And whereas government organizations are better able to fulfill their missions, understand and embrace the full diversity of their communities and social realities that affect us all, when they are led by boards that are intentionally diverse in composition, inclusive in culture, and equity-focused in development of strategies and solutions to deepen the impact and the relevance and advancement of the public good. And whereas if we dedicate ourselves to the principles of truth, racial healing, and transformation, we can bring about the necessary changes in thinking and behavior that will propel this great country forward as a unified force where racial biases will become a thing of the past. And whereas racial healing is a vital and crucial commitment to the educational, physical, social, and mental well-being of all people, now therefore be it proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners declares January 18th, 2022 as Day of Racial Healing in Ramsey County. And be it further proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, in conjunction with others throughout the United States, urges all Ramsey County residents to commit to racial healing and transformation in the ways best suited for them individually and as a community, as a means of working together to ensure the greatest quality of life for every resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. And we have guests, I believe, on this issue. Who's up next?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Board. We do have Antonio Montez, one of our other racial and health equity administrators, and then Dr. Raj here as community. And I would just say it's been this past couple of years have been a long journey for all of us. But in advancing racial equity in Ramsey County, I would say I am very honored and proud to be part of an organization that really has racial equity and centering racial equity within its core. Probably about 7 or 8 months ago, there was a group, a cross-jurisdictional group of representatives from the city of Minneapolis, city of St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, and Brooklyn Park that started meeting just around community engagement and how do we learn from each other and collaborate and connect. And it was this group of individuals that decided for, I would say the first time that I know of locally within the Twin Cities area, to really focus on a cross-jurisdictional effort around National Day of Racial Healing. So the National Day of Racial Healing centers around experiences rooted in truth-telling, offering people, organizations, and communities a day set aside for racial healing, bringing people together to take a collective action for a more just and equitable world. And it started by the Kellogg Foundation in 2017 to bring people together for a conversation about how we heal from the effects of racism. This day is observed every year on the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day, and this year being today, January 18th. So this year, the city of Minneapolis, city of St. Paul, city of Brooklyn Park, Ramsey County, and Hennepin County are partnering to bring 2 cross-jurisdictional events to recognize National Day of Racial Healing, and we are co-hosting these events to bring people together, break down barriers, and form relationships across the metropolitan area. As racism impacts all of us, and we believe we need to create more spaces for our collective healing. So today from noon to 1:30, there will be a staff gathering that was extended to staff across all 5 jurisdictions. And then this evening, there will be a community event from 6 to 8 p.m., all virtually, of course. And the community event will offer We'll offer healing techniques and resources from TC Collins, as well as a panel discussion around leaders within those jurisdictions that are leading racial equity initiatives and efforts across the region. And I would offer for Administrator Montez to share any words, and then Dr. Raj.
Prince, I appreciate you. I don't have anything to add. Well said. Thank you so much for leading this effort. And I'll reserve the rest of the time for Dr. Raj.
Hey, y'all are being humble. Appreciate. Good morning. Good morning. If you're here, if you're listening, right, let us remember the words of Audre Lorde, right? Audre Lorde often says that caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And it is an act of political warfare. And in her own work, right, Audre Lorde advances this idea of us caring for ourselves because we are kept so busy by capitalism and many other variables in our communities. We often don't indulge in that deep breathing, being present, right? And so this is a political warfare in that sense, is that politics and systems often want us to be in our survival mode, right? Humanity wants us to be in our rested space, in our heart space, in our body, as we are reminded, right? Jennifer Richardson, who wrote the book on healing circles as Black feminist pedagogical interventions, often say that I argue, in order to produce true social transformation and strive for a radical nation of collective freedom, we must pay attention not only to our political ideological positions, but also to our individual and collective practices of self-care and healing, practices that themselves are deeply political. So racial healing, along with this concept of healing per se, right, requires us to be present, requires us to get out of that fight, flight, freeze mode, right? Come into our heart space and to understand the struggles. Because as Richard Rohr often says, that pain not transformed will transfer. And if we are not transforming the pain that we are experiencing, right? Brother Rasma Menakan often says, right, how do we do this somatic liberation, right? To understand that our body, if not taken into account, will often, right, become the deposit of all of the trauma and the pain. Racial harm often sticks to your body. And one has to understand how to liberate that pain and to be able to say that something has been done, right? None of us are broken, as Rasma Menakan says, right? Something happened to us as a community. White, Black, and others have been affected and harmed by racial injustices and oppression and genocide, as Brother Bellecourt often says, right? Audre Lorde and many others, right? Bell Hooks says, come and practice telling truth, not just tell the truth, but telling truth requires love, presence, humanity, right? To tell the truth, one can really read the statistics and say, these are the disparities. But in order to practice telling the truth requires us to be in presence with one another, in a circle, right? In a circle. If we, as the civil rights leader, Mal Reeves often say, if we fight, we will win, right? Brother passed on here recently, but that also reminds us that if we continue to fight and liberate ourselves, we will be able to recognize and reconcile and practice, right, racial healing in our society. And last but not least, I want to just finish up by talking about another leader who passed on, right? Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who often reminds us, right, that our humanity is inextricably connected to all of us, right? To the other, right? Yours and mine are inextricably connected. And if we practice the principles of Ubuntu in that sense of the word, right? Understanding that we are able to see each other's humanity. I see my humanity in Kathy Hadeen, right? Kathy Hadeen seeing their humanity in William Moore, right? And so on and so forth. We are able to see our humanity. Then we are able to come to be in a place of healing, right? Racial healing, because racial healing was dishonored and disenfranchised because we wanted to treat people as the other, not as human beings. Let us stop that practice of the otherizing, right? Let us invite ourselves to be in that space of humanizing. And let us come here to do hard work, not hard work. I love y'all. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, also want to acknowledge William Moore, the Health and Wellness Service Team, Racial and Health Equity Administrator here as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raj, for your incredible words and reminders, as well as Prince Corbett and your leadership, William Moore, Antonio Montes. Thank you so much for being here. I do have commissioners with hands up. We'll start with Commissioner Reinhardt and then move to Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Normally when anyone reads a proclamation, we make our comments at that time. But knowing what was to come, I just had to listen and absorb and immerse myself in their words. And it's pretty amazing where we are at today, how long this struggle has gone on, hundreds of years. And it really feels like we are in a spot where we can make that transformation. We must. When looking around and seeing the division, and then realizing that basically we need to really look at individuals and make sure that we are understanding that we care about everyone and trying to make a difference here. And I think our board is really committed to that. And so it's also something that's very emotional. I know it's emotional for everyone on this board, and so I will leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of our guests for sharing today. I just wanted to add some words from one of my favorite thought leaders in this space, Vanya Davis, about the importance of committing to healing and a radical commitment to healing as part of our social and racial justice efforts. And that when we incorporate healing through restorative justice practices into our racial justice efforts, it provides, in her words, a form of more capacious justice, one that produces radically inclusive, decentralized, and democratic spaces that offer the possibility of recognizing, taking responsibility for, and repairing harm, both interpersonal and structural. And her big urge for all of us to be not only warriors for racial and social justice, but also healers of the harms that have occurred, speaks to me on a really deep level. And I hope we continue those efforts here at Ramsey County.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. Commissioner Carter.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being in this space together today. And Dr. Raj, as you quoted the words of Mel Reeves, if we fight, we will win. I believe that does describe the moment that we are in right this moment. We are fighting and we will win. And not only are we fighting, but we are fighting together. And I just want to recognize those that are on the call here with us in presenting today's proclamation, that we are all a part of that fight together. And as community, we are working out our humanity together. To thank you all, to thank you for embracing this work and for bringing so many others in the ways in which you are lifting up the platform for racial equity and racial healing, not only today, but that you have over these past years as well, even during our pandemic, provided a space for people to work through humanity together. I know that you will continue doing that work as we fight together to win for all of us. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Raha's words. It's always good to hear him. I kind of settled down and relaxed just to listen to him when he starts speaking. But in the spirit of his words, I just want to tell a little story about Clyde Bellecourt. It must have been around 1988, 89 when Clues was expanding to Minneapolis. And the first thing I did was to meet with Clyde Bellecourt because we needed space to open offices for services in Minneapolis. And after my meeting with him, he stood with me to present to the American Indian OIC, who has a campus on Franklin, and they had an empty building, and we needed that building. It was a perfect fit for our services, and but we didn't have much money to pay rent. And Clyde Bellecourt stood by me as I presented to the American Indian OIC. And after that presentation, the board voted to give us the space, I think for $1 a year. We were housed there for a couple of years. But it speaks to the fact that we got to come together, share our resources, and work to provide the services that our communities need, because we're all in the same boat. That was, they understood that as we do. And I'll always remember that, because we need champions. All the champions don't always come from our communities. They come from the universe, right? You never know who's gonna step up to help you. And I've learned that throughout my life. And I just wanted to bring that up because those words that Dr. Raha spoke to really rang true to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. And thank you again to all of our presenters today, and for the entire team who's working to move our work in racial equity forward in every one of the departments. And in the inspiring words of Dr. Raj, let us see and reflect each other's humanity as we do this work moving forward. So thank you all very much. With that, we're going to move forward with another guest. We have a special award presentation this morning from the Association of Minnesota Counties, and the esteemed Executive Director, Julie Ring, is here with us today. Welcome, Julie, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board and community. I hope you can hear me okay. I see some nods. Good. I have a new setup here in my office today with a new camera, and so I'm adjusting on the fly. Thank you for inviting me to attend your meeting today. And I have to say, I'm particularly honored to follow your proclamation presentation, because I'm here to share some awards that really demonstrate the county's values. So the Association of Minnesota Counties presents awards to counties and individuals each year who have demonstrated outstanding leadership through innovation and dedication to county government. During our annual conference last December, Ramsey County was recognized for an innovative program, and a Ramsey County employee received an outstanding service award. So I'm pleased to be here with all of you today to share this recognition with a broader audience than we were able to at our conference. First, I'd like to share information about the program that was awarded an Achievement Award. This was the Ramsey County 2020 Census and Voter Engagement Program. And I want to give you a little bit of background about it. So Ramsey County conducted a comprehensive community engagement strategy for the 2020 census and the 2020 presidential election that focused on historically undercounted and underrepresented communities. The strategy included a census and voter engagement grant initiative. It included establishing a complete count committee in partnership with the city of St. Paul. and a sustained focus on community meetings, focus groups, and projects to share accurate, timely census and elections information with the community. The county distributed 27 small grants worth just over $137,000 to recipients based in historically undercounted and underrepresented communities. The Complete Count Committee convened municipal and community partners for strategic planning and coordination. Additional community meetings and projects were focused on sharing accurate and timely elections information. These efforts made a difference in the county. Census self-response rates jumped from 75.6% in 2010 to 79.1% in 2020. In the 2020 election, Ramsey County voters achieved a 77.4% turnout, the highest ever for a presidential election. The county forged valuable relationships with key community partners, whom the county has continued to work with on other important initiatives. So I'm happy to be here today with you to recognize Ramsey County for this innovative program to connect and serve historically unrepresented and underrepresented communities to these important efforts.
Thank you so much, Julie. I think that goes for a round of applause from all of us. We appreciate your recognition of this great work. And I want to give just a moment to the team to share. I'm going to start by turning it over to Karen Francois.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor, guests, and those who are watching. My name is Karen Francois, and I am the Deputy County Manager for the Information and Public Records Service team. I am here in this moment on behalf of my colleague and my friend, Elizabeth Tolsman, and myself. I just wanted to say how proud we are of the elections and census team for the outstanding work they have done on the front lines to fight to save our democracy. Dr. Jolie Wood, Director Heather Bessler, Manager David Triplett, and the rest of the team and the hundreds of community members who did this work are truly warriors for the cause. We are so proud of you, and we look forward to continuing to serve you and the work that you do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Deputy County Manager Francois. I have Commissioner Reinhardt with her hand up. Go ahead, Commissioner Reinhardt, who is our co-lead on the work around the census. So thank you very much for your leadership as well, Commissioner Reinhardt. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I have to tell you, having been through now more than one census, this was truly a different atmosphere altogether, the way we approached it, working with the City of St. Paul, truly in partnership. The suburban communities were involved. We had so many meetings, and just the work that was done in between the meetings is what really made the difference here. So when Minnesota retained its congressional seat, I think that Ramsey County and the City of St. Paul and all of the communities within it should say, yes, it was because of us. So, but the work and the creativity and how can we get to those that have been so underrepresented and try to make them feel comfortable. Because if you remember correctly, we were in the atmosphere around this was one of not even, I was going to say not, the federal government wasn't helping us. The federal government in many ways was working against us and not wanting to have everyone counted. And funding was pulled. I mean, there were all kinds of things that took place. And we just, as a community, with the leadership of Chair Carter and everyone involved, everybody on this board was really involved in all of this because we want to practice what we preach. And that's kind of the motto for today, I think, is making sure that we're doing what we know in our hearts and soul is right. And that's, and it carried through on the census and get out the vote and everything that we did in 2020. So again, thank you to everyone involved because it was truly a community effort.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. And I just want to also say a huge thanks to Jolie Wood as well, who really led and engaged and kept us informed on this work going forward. So thank you all very much. Now, the good news is we have one more award, which is really exciting. And so I'm going to turn that back over to Julie Ring to share that as well.
I am delighted to do that, Madam Chair. So in addition to a program award this year, an individual in Ramsey County was recognized for outstanding service to county government. And after being nominated by the county, was selected by the executive committee of the Association of Minnesota Counties Board to receive this award. So I'd like to recognize today Ramsey County Deputy Manager Kathy Hedin for her outstanding service to county government. Kathy Hedin has 20 years of progressive leadership experience in local government. And as I just said, and you know, she's currently the Deputy County Manager for Ramsey County, overseeing the largest service team comprised of 6 departments, 2,300 employees, and nearly 40% of the county's budget. Previously, Kathy served as a public health director for Ramsey County, and she was and continues to be a key leader in the county's COVID-19 pandemic response. Kathy holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Community Health from Minnesota State University Mankato, as well as a Master of Science in Social and Community Work from Capella University. She also earned a certificate from the Harvard Kennedy School. Her many years of public service and leadership experience include public health administration, pandemic response leadership, disease prevention, violence prevention, adolescent health, racial and health equity, and environmental health. And I just have to say on a personal note, in addition to the county board's words in nominating Kathy, that I know her to be a leader statewide in public health, which is an issue area near and dear to my heart. So I am very happy to be here virtually today to recognize Kathy Hedin in front of the full board and the community and thank her on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Counties Board of Directors.
Thank you. That is another great round of applause. And I would like to turn it over to Kathy if she's got any things she wants to share with us. Kathy.
Oh, thank you so much, commissioners, and thank you so much, Julie. Of course, I have things to say because I can't sit here and say thank you and accept this alone. There's so many people who are a part of this work. So time me 20 minutes. I'm giving myself 20 minutes here. All right, but for real, what a nice way for Ramsey County to be recognized. I do want to say thanks to my colleagues on the exec team, Karen, Scott, Joanna, and Alex, and I'll thank the rest of you. Thanks to Lydia, Germa, and Elizabeth Tolzman, and Jamie Levine for putting such amazing words onto paper as a part of this nomination. Using your skills to lift me up, I appreciate you all and would like to take you everywhere I go and have you write about me in every setting. And to Ryan, our county manager, thank you for the nomination for this award, for your leadership over the past 2 years and beyond, and for your encouragement and support as we continue to navigate the ups and downs of this pandemic together. I appreciate the guidance and the optimism that you bring as we serve our community. I'm also accepting this award on behalf of the teams that have been working tirelessly for almost 2 years. I am certainly not one who feels comfortable with I statements when it comes to accomplishments, but now I'm going to say a bunch of I statements. I've worked for Ramsey County, as you heard, since 2001 and had the opportunity to work with many amazing teams over the years. I've learned from and continue to learn from each and every person I've had the opportunity to work with, and I try to carry that model of teamwork wherever I am in our system. It's always a gamble to single people out because then you forget someone and someone feels bad, but I'm going to try to do it this way. To those of you I've had the privilege of sitting next to and attending team meetings with over the years, and to those of you who we've had to finish each other's projects so you or I could go on vacation without worrying about work, or for those of you who I've gotten to know so well, to be able to go to your kiddos' sporting events or enjoyed meals together or saw each other outside of work in the neighborhood. Thank you for being amazing people and wonderful teammates over the years. Being recognized here means we've been a part of each other's journeys, and because of that, I can accept this award today. There are two people that I will actually call out and thank specifically for the partnership over the last 2 years. These two people have been leading our teams throughout this pandemic as co-pilots of the Public Health Incident Command Team. Dr. Lynn Ogawa and Incident Commander Laura Anderson, who I think are hiding on the screen today, but some of you can't see them right now. We've been at this really since before COVID, and we were responding to watermelon issues. But they've been leading in this COVID space from the first few communications determining when we would call up our incident command structure before anyone else in this county system was assigned to a response task or a leadership position. I couldn't imagine going through this pandemic response without the two of you. Between the three of us, I'm betting there's more texts, probably in the tens of 20s of thousands of texts that we can count discussing who will respond to emails, to media requests, who's going to take a break because they're about to lose it again, and who gets a high five for the wittiest comments after something crazy, unusual, or surprising happens. Thank you both for your strength, your commitment to the health and well-being of Ramsey County, and for always lifting up science first and finding skillful ways of communicating excellent and sound public health guidance for these past 2 years. And thanks for pushing back on me when I needed it too. I appreciate you both, and Ramsey County continues to need your leadership. And also thank you for not taking other jobs like I did. To the public health team, COVID-19 continues to flex its muscle at all of you, but our teams are flexing right back. It was a privilege to be your public health director, to lead us through the beginning of this pandemic, through our first cases, setting up testing opportunities for our community, advocating for better data coming out of the Minnesota Department of Health, and working with community to ensure that we don't leave people behind because of past or current public health, healthcare, and governmental practices that disproportionately harmed Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. Our public health team continues to fight hard against this pandemic, even though they are pretty darn tired right now. With Sarah Hawley, Director Hawley at the lead now. Remember, Sarah, no backsies. And also, thank you for accepting this opportunity to lead. You're doing a great job. The public health leadership team and command teams are continuing to find innovative ways to serve our community, and they continue to show they are exemplary local public health leaders in the state of Minnesota. It continues to be an honor to be a trusted leader in our public health system, and that is learning more and more every day how we can be and do better. In addition to the hard work of our public health and incident management teams, is the rest of our Ramsey County departments. Ramsey County has continued to work each work day for 688 days of this pandemic, with moments of grief and sadness, and certainly a lot of stress, but also moments of celebration and joy. If it weren't for everyone continuing to come to work and serve, others couldn't have worked in redeployed positions to respond to this pandemic, and none of us would have been effective leaders. Thank you to just a few departments, not gonna name everybody because I'm running out of time, but thank you to the mental health crisis staff, to public works teams, to housing staff and correctional officers and deputies, and people in our 24/7 facilities and enterprise-wide services for continuing to come to work every day, taking calls, putting themselves at risk, and for everyone else I didn't name. I wouldn't be here accepting this award again if you weren't here doing your jobs. It takes our entire Ramsey County team to work with and serve our community, and I'm honored to be highlighted here. Just a couple of last acknowledgements. Thank you to the Health and Wellness Service team leaders. It's been a pleasure working with you and the departments, and I'm looking forward to what we have ahead of us here in 2022. And of course, I have to thank my family. A huge thank you to my husband, Jason, and our two kiddos. I am extremely grateful for their support and understanding. While I've spent many more hours than I should probably admit working and serving Ramsey County, I'm grateful for the fact that they still want to keep me as their spouse and their mother. I left the house this morning wondering how I was going to be in 2 meetings at the same time, get 2 kids to 2 different sports in 2 different cities. Again, 688 days. On the bright side, my son thinks I'm famous. Don't any of you tell him otherwise. I'm going to milk that one for all I can because he thinks because I'm on TV here, I'm famous, but I love it. And finally, thank you to the Board of Commissioners. You all have been so supportive and encouraging. And thank you for your leadership, your support, and for this AMC award. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Let's do one more round of applause for Kathy and her amazing team and all the great work. Thank you so much. I saw a hand from Commissioner McGuire. Go ahead, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hard to follow your amazing tribute to your team, Kathy, but just to echo our gratitude and our thanks to you and your whole team for all the work that you've been doing from when you were Public Health Director to now Health and Wellness. We just couldn't say enough about all the work you've been doing, and arguably the most important work that we can do is in public health, especially now. And so just thank you so much. I had my hand raised also for the elections because I just want to say that arguably these are the two most important areas is keeping our democracy with our elections and also our public health. So today we're grateful to AMC, and Julie, thank you for being here, for helping us honor two of the most important areas of work that counties do. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you at AMC for giving this award. But Kathy, again, thank you so much for your leadership and all the work that you and your team are doing, and also to the elections team. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. And I'm going to turn over to County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to conclude with gratitude and appreciation to the elections and census team, as well as to Deputy County Manager Hadeen. Her words summarized it well on behalf of how we do this as both individuals at work and as servants and in a collective team environment that involves everyone on the screen. And to finish that, we talk about leadership at all levels and people coming together across areas to do this work. And I think as you look at the screen and the boxes of faces here and the faces who have been on and off already through our meeting this morning, it really highlights it well. And we appreciate this chance from AMC to be able to bring that to light today at the outset of the board meeting. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And our closing remarks coming from Julie Ring at AMC. Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, just in conclusion, I want to say, the commissioners certainly know, others may know, as the executive director of the Association of Minnesota Counties, I always say I do not have a favorite Minnesota county. I love all 87 in many ways, but I will just say this to you today. I am a resident of Ramsey County, and I am very proud. I'm very proud to be a member of your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julie, and we're so glad you've chosen to live here in Ramsey County with us. All right, appropriately so, as we just recognized our great public health department and the work there, we're going to go to our COVID update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This can be one of our shorter weeks, but there's been a lot moving with Omicron and other items. So I'm going to turn it right over to Director Holly for quick updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor. It's great to be back here this week. To County Manager O'Connor's point, I don't know how short I can be. There's a lot happening, as you mentioned, but I'll try to keep it brief. As we mentioned in previous weeks, Omicron remains the dominant COVID variant here in the United States, and it's accounting for approximately 98.3% of all new infections in the US, according to the recently revised CDC model. Here in Region 5, which I've mentioned before, Omicron appears to represent 97% of all new infections. As of yesterday, CDC reports Ramsey County at 1,461 cases per 100,000, and a weekly positivity remaining steady at 26.5% compared to 26.9% as of last week, among those using a laboratory confirmed test. Mike, if you can briefly share our COVID-19 case dashboard, that would be wonderful. Thank you, sir. All right, so just briefly, we wanted to show a new graph that is breaking out new cases versus reinfections. And so a person is counted as having a reinfection if they test positive for COVID-19 more than 90 days after a previous lab confirmed case. So Mike is hovering over January 4th, just as an example, showing our daily infection that day at 1,328 with a daily reinfection of 166 cases. So this just demonstrates a new way for us to view how we're seeing a number of infections coming into our community, but also the reinfection rate by day. And so I just want to send a huge thank you to Nora Moore and Kristen Grill for adding this to our COVID-19 dashboard. And I think Incident Commander Anderson will continue to highlight this each and I think on a bi-weekly basis. Thank you, Mike. All right, so I'll shift to talking about vaccines, which continue to be our top priority here at St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health. For the week of January 16th through January 22nd, we expect to administer 700 doses of vaccine. We have given 2,966 booster shots, and as of yesterday, we have given 4,938 pediatric doses at our site since the beginning of November. That's amazing. And so we want to continue to see our community members at our vaccine sites. You can visit the Ramsey County website to get an appointment. And we'll continue to implement vaccine and booster shots at our clinics across the county. We continue to offer that $50 gift card for first doses for people 5+. And we are now offering booster shots, as I mentioned last week, for people 12+ who are 5 months from their previous series. So again, please visit our Ramsey County website for more information. I'm also thrilled to welcome University of Minnesota nursing students as workers at our vaccine clinic starting this week. This is a partnership that will bring 16 skilled nursing students to support our community-based clinics through the end of April. So this is an excellent opportunity, not only for the nursing students, but a great partnership between Ramsey County and the University of Minnesota. Last week, the state of Minnesota launched the next phase of Kids Deserve a Shot, which is a vaccine incentive program to encourage Minnesota families to get children 5 to 11 fully vaccinated against COVID-19. I just want to mention here that the program will consist of 2 sets of rewards for families with fully vaccinated 5 to 11-year-olds. So right now, a $200 Visa gift card for each Minnesotan 5 to 11 years old who starts and completes their 2-dose series between January 1st and February 2022 is now eligible for a $200 Visa gift card. Later on, there will be 5 drawings for $100,000 Minnesota college scholarships for all fully vaccinated 5 to 11-year-olds later this spring. So you can prep for college by getting your vaccine and be eligible for that drawing. So parents and guardians can register their 5 to 11-year-olds once they have completed their 2-dose series. This registration for the gift card will open at 10 a.m. on January 24th and close at 11:59 p.m. on February 28th. People can go learn about this opportunity, Kids Deserve a Shot, at minnesota.gov/COVID-19. I want to just kind of wrap up the vaccine part of my update this morning by saying that on January 12th, Mayor Melvin Carter signed an executive order instituting proof of vaccination and a negative test for licensed businesses in St. Paul and spaces of public accommodation in St. Paul. And this will go into effect on January 19th. I just want to reiterate that we're encouraging everyone in Ramsey County and in Minnesota to wear a mask when they're in public indoor settings. It's now also recommended that people wear a KN95 mask or a surgical mask instead of a cloth mask. For employees providing direct patient care, essential services, and staff that are working on site in close proximity to one another, they should also wear a KN95 and or double up on a surgical mask if a KN95 is not available. A friendly reminder that KN95s can be worn up to 5 times according to the CDC, as long as they are not soiled or damaged. Public Health Logistics, a big thank you to Public Health Logistics for your continued contribution to getting PPE out to many of our departments and frontline workers. So we'll continue to do that as soon as possible. I want to shift now to talk a little bit about testing. We encourage that people get tested or self-test on a regular basis. St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health, as I mentioned a few times, will expand testing capacity starting next week for at least a 5 to 6 week period here in Ramsey County. We will offer community-based PCR testing starting on January 27th. We are already working with our St. Paul Ramsey County public health programs and other county programs to get at-home PCR tests out to the community most impacted by COVID. So it's a big accomplishment, I think, in partnership between Ramsey County and the Minnesota Department of Health. We want to thank our state partners for this opportunity to increase capacity around testing in our community. Last week, you may know this, but CDC isolation and quarantine recommendations officially changed from 5 days or from 10 days to 5 days alongside the Minnesota Department of Health. We are working with HR to adapt our isolation and quarantine policy based on these guidelines. I just want to stress, though, that if you work in healthcare, correctional health, or in other congregate living settings, there are different isolation requirements for healthcare workers, correctional health, shelter and daycare staff who have different isolation and quarantine guidelines. So please talk to your supervisor in these settings to get the latest requirements specific to your job in these various areas. With all of these recent updates to the CDC and MDH isolation and quarantine guidelines, we have been working with our school partners to provide ongoing guidance. As we know, many of our school partners rely on this information to make informed decisions, right, as we continue to navigate some very challenging times. On January 12th, Governor Tim Walz announced his intention, and this is really important, to provide $40 million in new funding to help support hospital staffing to serve Minnesotans across the state during the current surge of COVID-19 cases. The $40 million will cover the costs for providers, mostly RNs, so our nursing staff, who will work 60 hours per week for 60 days to provide care to patients at certain Minnesota hospitals dealing with staffing shortages due to COVID-19. I just want to stress that nationwide, daily COVID hospitalizations are up about 33% this week from last week. And more than 155,000 people are hospitalized due to COVID. We're well above the records that was set last winter. Shifting to a little bit more, maybe a positive note, I would ask that people please join Dr. Lynn Ogawa for a virtual community conversation that will be happening tomorrow, January 19th. The focus will be on vaccines for pregnant people, testing, and of course, Omicron. You can ask Dr. Ogawa COVID-19 questions while also learning how to protect yourself, your family, and our community during this ongoing pandemic. And to find out more information about this community conversation, you can visit ramseycounty.us/calendar. Finally, I want to thank the unsung heroes of this pandemic, our vaccine effort. Our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers have contributed have given around 11,646 hours since February 2021. And we've had more than 500 MRC volunteers contribute to not only our vaccine efforts, our testing efforts, just a variety of activities that build our capacity as a public health agency to continue to respond to COVID. I want to briefly echo Mark Jackson. He is the Director of Testing and Vaccination Support for St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health, that volunteers are indispensable. We know that our public health COVID response could not have worked without our MRC volunteers. We could not have done this without all of the unsung heroes who continue to show up and give back to the community each and every day. Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor, feel free to send me and the team questions for written response after today's board meeting. Thank you so much for always having us.
Thank you so much, Director Hawley. And I will just echo that I had my youngest in for his booster shot at the 360 Colburn site, and our volunteers who administered, he had previously received his 2 other shots through the Department of Health sites, and he said, I should have been at Ramsey County the whole time, they give better shots. So I think that was a good testament of great service when a kiddo is willing to get a shot. So thank you to all of our volunteers. I do understand, I think I saw an email that you're also looking for more medical reserve volunteers, and so wanted to give that opportunity to highlight that we are looking for additional volunteers, and they can sign up on our website. They need reinforcements. Those volunteers have given, as you said, over 11,000 hours, and we could use some more help as we continue through this pandemic. I see Commissioner McDonough with a question. Before I move to Commissioner McDonough, I wanted you to clarify, because I want to make sure I heard it right. When we're talking about the mask and vaccine mandate for the city of St. Paul for restaurants, is it a both vaccine and a negative test, or an or? Because I've heard it two different ways, and I want to make sure you say it clearly, because I think you said and today.
Yes, it's vaccine or test, negative test, Madam Chair. Correct.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner McDonough.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Sarah, for that report. So I was listening to you and just over the last few days, talking to family and community members, it's occurred to me, and I know this could be it's complicated and a big thing as requirements and guidelines develop, but because there's so many different ones, and CDC comes out and states do this, and then local governments do this, or school districts do this, or is there some value in trying to find a way to have kind of a one-stop where we're at with guidelines for whatever you're attempting to do, right? Because that's really becoming part of the confusion for individuals and people in our community is, I've got a flight on Friday, but I don't know what the airlines are telling me to do. And I've got a conference here in Minneapolis. I don't know what that means to me as far as how I can respond, because I heard this yesterday and I heard this today, and someone was telling me this. And I don't know if we're doing that in some form or other, but working with partners, does it make sense for us to try to figure out a way to do a kind of one-stop fits all or spot where people can go and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing, or this is where I'm going to be going, and this is the requirements, or my kids go to school in this district and this is what they're doing, or daycare in this area. But it's just becoming so complicated for folks about meeting the requirements as folks are responding to CDC guidelines, and some are changing, some are not. So thank you.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McDonough, County Manager O'Connor. And so I think a shout out to our communications team. We are working with them to even just kind of put in plain language some of the guidance, the recent guidance, Commissioner McDonough, Madam Chair, around isolation and quarantine. And so we're working to do that. But I would just say that alongside public health and communications, we continue to point people to the resources on the CDC and MDH website. And I would say if you have not checked out the CDC website, they have a lot of information based on the setting that you're in. It could be a school, it could be healthcare, Madam Chair and Commissioner McDonough, it could be if you're traveling, right? Because to your point, Commissioner McDonough, it can be complex, right? And I think that one thing that the CDC and even Ramsey County Public Health and Communications has done is try to simplify what communities should act on. And so we're working not only to do that on our external website, but we're also working to do that internally with staff. So there will be some kind of more plain language communication going out, even around the recent isolation and quarantine guidance. We were kind of waiting, kind of in that holding pattern for a moment, to make sure that that the CDC and MDH were endorsing that guidance a few weeks ago. So we'll continue to do that. I think it's also important to continue to work with our trusted messengers. And I know the Minnesota Department of Health is continuing to do that with their partners that are doing this work in diverse communities, reaching our youth and young adults on important information. But I do think that we'll continue to rely on our state and federal partners. They do have a lot of great information out there and clickable sites where you can actually go out and look at the setting that you're in, right? And so we'll continue to try to layer that in, Madam Chair and Commissioner McDonough, to our communications on our website, which kudos to John Sigvelin and Chris Burns and the entire team for continuing to navigate this space and find ways that we can get information out to the community. I'll also mention, Madam Chair and Commissioner McDonough, before I forget, we have a billboard campaign that will be starting. I think we're going to be doing some bus decal ads and billboards in community that actually point people to where they can get more information around masking and testing and vaccines. Very appealing imagery, very family and community friendly, but very simple. Because I think the messaging has to be simple and understandable for people to really get where they need to go and to get the information they need to travel, to go to family gatherings, to go to work every day, to be in school, and to just continue to try to live this new normal.
Thank you for that. Well done. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Director Hawley. Again, if there are other questions that you have or deeper questions, you can email Director Hawley and she'll get responses for you as well. So thank you for that, and keep up the great work for you and your whole team.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right. We are at the point now in our agenda that we can move on to administrative items. Commissioner Ortega. I think you froze just at that moment. There you are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move item number 5, second amendment to the lease agreement with Face Health and Counseling Services, Inc. Number 6, single source agreement with Toltz, King, Duval, Anderson and Associates for consulting engineering services on the Lexington Parkway realignment project. Item number 7, repurchase of tax forfeited property located at 1128 Beach Street in St. Paul. Item number 8, repurchase of tax forfeited property located at 1277 Rice Street in St. Paul. Item number 9, repurchase of a tax forfeited property located at 760 Minnehaha Avenue East in St. Paul. Item number 10, sale of tax forfeited property classified as conservation land for less than market value to the County of Ramsey Public Works. Item number 11, general fund balance loan for the homeless shelter project. Item number 12, authorization for 2022 bond sale.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
and Modis Castillo.
Aye. Thank you. And we have 2 ordinance procedures on our agenda. We first have our revised Parks and Recreation Ordinance, waive of first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ortega,
Aye.
thank you. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
and Modis Castillo.
Aye. We also have the revised Parks and Rec Ordinance set of public hearing dates. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
and Modis Castillo.
Aye. We have one policy item for discussion, and this is on our housing stability project. And given the urgency of our shelter situation, we thought we would bring this to the board once a month for update as we're moving through. And so you can expect this in future months, but we're going to start by opening with and turning this over to Commissioner McDonough, who has led this work for us over the last year and several years, 20 years plus. So thank you, Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And you've actually been a solid partner in us moving this forward. So appreciate that partnership. I'll be brief here. Over the last year, I've given the board brief updates on the work of the continuum care and through the governing board and the steering committee and that work as we kind of rebooted that organization to bring in community partners to be a part of this. We know Ramsey County is a huge funder and has a big stake in this in partnership with the city of St. Paul, but this has to be owned by the community for solutions. As everybody's aware, we stepped forward with a large amount of CARES funding early on to help with the shelter situation, to help make sure that we could, socially distance, we could address folks in the community that were testing positive or feeling ill and have respite care in so many ways. And as we know that CARES funding will be ending in May, and we want to do our best job to be prepared for that as we ramp down. But then also the work that we've done through the steering committee and the governing board come forward with solutions to help us with the bridge, kind of that gap as we invest in affordable housing through the HRA and partnership again with the city and the investment of the ARPA dollars there. So a lot going on, a lot more than I've been able to update in the brief moments in the county board over the year. So Madam Chair, I really appreciate that. Keith and the team have an opportunity to keep the board informed at a much deeper level and ensuring that that there is confidence that as we ramp down and prepare for May, we are building and strengthening that partnership with communities so that all folks have opportunity for a dignified and respectful shelter, and continuing that along the continuum to eventually permanent housing that meets their needs. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Housing Stability, Keith Lattimore.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow board members. Thanks for having me, County Manager. So today I wanted to be able to come and just kind of give a level set, just kind of explain where we are right now to really inform the board about what Commissioner McDonough just spoke to. And that's really about where we are in our continuum as we move through and the recommendations that the continuum of care is making, and that we're looking to see how we continue what we currently have. So I wanted to, basically just kind of have a real high level and promise obviously to come back next month and each month thereafter to kind of give us an update as to where we are. Today, I'll talk a little bit about and bring us as a reminder of where we've been and to where we are now as of current today, and really talk about what are some of the things that you may want to see outside of what I'm planning to bring back. So, we can make sure that each commissioner in our board have a clear understanding of what, we're facing moving forward. So when we start back and taking a look at our March of 2020, seems like a long time ago, and time has been moving fast, but we were asked really by our partners to establish some temporary emergency shelters to help partners gain compliance with our social distancing and CDC guidelines to combat some of the COVID-19 that they were facing. And the county stepped up with CARES Act dollars at that time and really, helped establish Mary Hall, Capitol Ridge, Como, and Bethesda, and also our respite system. So we had really places for those individuals so they wouldn't have to come from a shelter and move outdoors. And while at the same time, we wanted to utilize other hotels to kind of bring them into a place where they can have dignity about who they are and, what Ramsey County response was going to be. And so I would like to just say, yeah, we had some creative stumbling along the way, but I think that over time, working together with our partners, we were able to establish those places that kept individuals inside, as well as be able to eliminate some of our encampments that we were seeing around the cities at the time. So the height of our shelter work, when we established those individual locations, we had roughly over 300 plus limited duration staff that board approved us to hire in order to carry out this work. And happy to say that 75 are still with us today as we look at where we have reductions. Again, in our heightened level, we had an increased shelter space for women and couples. We did some additional spaces for families. And we also made sure that our seniors and those who were most vulnerable to COVID were taken care of. We also established respite space for our homeless shelter network, and not just for those spaces that were for Ramsey County, but also our partners, to when if they had a COVID case inside of another shelter, to prevent that shelter from experiencing a large outbreak, we were able to move those individuals into our respite space. And then we also partner with the city significantly to bring those individuals that were inside. And at the time, we had over 300 and some odd individuals that were unsheltered. And so we reduced those numbers down, I want to say to 20, and I think we may be up to about 30 was my last here on the report. So still some work to do, but certainly we have significantly reduced folks who have been exposed to elements and who were outside and unsheltered. So that brings us to where we are today. So where we are today, as I mentioned, and Commissioner McDonough mentioned, you know, we have a May cliff is kind of what we're calling it. And that's because some of our CARES Act dollars combined with our ARPA American Rescue Plan dollars that was dedicated to this project will be forecasted to end during that time. And so in preparation for that, we have started to do some reductions along the way, which back in October 1st, we really looked at our census to see who was actually in shelters, how many bed spaces were actually not being used at the time, and we made some moves there to start making some reductions in preparation for the May cliff. And when we looked at that, we closed Como in October the 1st, as we looked to see that those number of units that were there at that space were actually, we actually had more rooms that were not being used and more beds that were going empty each night than what that hotel actually housed. And so we made the decision to close at that time to kind of right set the number of beds that we needed versus the number of beds that we had. Additionally, we also then worked with our Catholic Charities partners as they were in a position to bring some beds back online from their social distancing requirements. And so they were able to increase 100 more beds that they could take in their higher ground location. And so we were also able to make some reductions in our Capitol Ridge location on December 1st of last year. In preparation for May 2022, we worked with our Continuum of Care work group to talk about what is it we're going to face when we get to May. And obviously, as we talked about before, the funding runs out at that point. So it was really about, we knew we had American Rescue Plan dollars, and the dedication to those dollars were actually made for long-term solutions. But we still had what is going to happen between the time that May comes and the time that actual space is available, affordable housing is available in the county. So we looked at that work group to look and solve that problem and make recommendations to the Continuum of Care on what they would recommend on how we move forward with that. And this work group actually met, and they came up with a 3 to 5 year gap that they anticipated to need between the time that May of 2022 hits till there was enough space in Ramsey County for folks to have affordable housing that could help us reduce the shelters altogether. And out of that work group, we had actually 4 recommendations that came forward. Those recommendations were that we wanted us to see 100-bed single shelter similar to our Bethesda location. We also had a recommendation that come out of the committee that said that they wanted to see 100 beds for families. And they also said that we needed the third recommendation was that we needed day space for those individuals throughout the day so they could go to a place where they either had home meals, could shower, and actually find resources during the day. And then finally, there was a 4th recommendation that came forward that was called Familiar Faces. And this was really centered around the idea of a very small number of individuals who are heavy users of resources, and how do we somehow pay more attention to them so we get them the help that they need in a central location as compared to where the way it is now. And so those are the 4 recommendations that came forward from our COC. And we'll be talking more about that as we move forward in the months ahead. But wanted to kind of give you some ground setting just to say, okay, where we are, so you have an understanding of what we be reporting out on as we move forward. As I mentioned before, those 4 recommendations, they are looking to see that those 4 recommendations, how do we survive the 3 to 5 year gap that they anticipate? And so those funding recommendations are coming forward, and there is work right now that's being discussed around how we go out and do that fund seeking, if you will, or financial seeking to fund those projects. I also wanted to kind of level set to say, you know, what happens if we stop today, kind of our point in time situation. So as of today, this morning, as we speak, we currently have 315 individuals in our Ramsey County temporary shelters. Unfortunately, there are 22 in our respite, and we've seen those numbers spike here in the last few months, as we heard from Director Holly with the public health. We are seeing a spike in our Omicron cases, and we are experiencing those spikes actually in our respite. It is fortunate that we still have it. I believe we're one of the last games in town for respite, not solely, but as large as what we have, we do have the ability to kind of cover our spike. But we are going to be working with our public health, and next month you'll kind of, hopefully we'll have a recommendation when our public health is seeing, because our 4 recommendations right now does not include a respite. So we want to find out, and we'll be able to bring that to you next month about what it is we will be asking if respite is a concern, and how do we go about moving that recommendation forward. So not today, but certainly in the month ahead. Finally, we look at our family shelter, we suffered a loss of 100 beds. If we were to close right now, or if funding were to run out right now, we have 100 family beds that is depending on these recommendations to continue throughout. And then the unseen right now, the unintended purposes is our extreme weather protocols. As we look outside and we see that we're also going to go into an extreme weather protocol this Wednesday of this week. And so we are looking at how do we, you know, also prep and make sure that we have space for those who are still unsheltered to come inside when our extreme weather protocols are in place, so they can be in a safe environment. So starting next month and then the months thereafter, we wanted to show and share timelines. We wanted to share costs that's associated with the funding gap. We also wanted to update the board on our financial strategies and update on respite recommendations moving forward. So these are kind of the things we want to bring forward, and I wanted to bring that to you today so we can level set where we are currently, kind of our point in time. And I also wanted to open up to any questions around what we're planning to bring to the board. And if there are specific asks, we would, you know, certainly like to hear that now. So I'll pause there for a moment, turn it back over to our Madam Chair.
Thank you, Keith, for that update. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add a couple things, and Keith, you did a great job in a short period of time talking about a lot of work that's gone on. And before I go any farther, I do want to take a moment to thank you, Leah, Lonnie, Maggie, all the folks that have been helping support this and the work that they've been doing, all the way down to all the folks we brought in to help staff those hotels and other options. I did want to highlight those 4 proposals that came out of our work group, and a couple of key things. You know, even as recently as 2 years ago, as a crisis like this was occurring, there would be conversations with key leaders, Ryan, Jamie, you know, a couple of commissioners, about solving problems between us and trying to figure it out as a team, crisis-driven, crisis response. You know, with the continuum of care really helping take ownership of this, we were able to move this May, you know, we could call it a cliff or an opportunity, right? I'm an optimist. I'll look at it as an opportunity into a shelter work group that we created that brought in larger ownership of the problem solving, not only on the solution, but, as he put it out, funding options. But a couple of things, we always try to use dignity and respect in our response here as we're trying to help provide resources for this community. And there was some things we learned out of COVID. Not really maybe learned, but validated. We always knew, right? You talk about the family response. And when we were able to bring Provincial House online, where families stayed there all day long, the old model was church basements. I visited them. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity, but I mean, they sufficed, but it wasn't, it was lacking some of that dignity and respect, right? Teachers would come in to help with homework, 7 o'clock in the morning, parents were trying to figure out how to get the jobs. We were busing kids to the family place, and kids that were going to school were getting bused off to school, and kids that didn't were staying there for the day. And then we were trying to get them back into churches. Well, Provincial House, we were able to support that family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in a way that didn't disrupt them, but allowed more family time, but still get kids to school, still get folks to jobs. And this recommendation is keeping that kind of what we learned and doing better as a part of that proposal. When we brought Bethesda online and we made that a 24-hour center where folks did not have to leave at 7 in the morning like they do at Catholic Charities or Safe Space, and then line up again at the evening, to get back in. But they were able to have a spot 24 hours a day. The proposal that's coming forward includes that, how we're treating people better, how we're getting better results in that. The impact of folks having to leave shelter during the day before COVID, our libraries, restaurants, parks, there just was these kind of the spots for folks to gather and help support each other. But again, it lacked that dignity, it lacked that respect. This, one of the things in COVID is we stood up another day programming, Freedom House, and we found that really helps support the community. So again, this proposal that's coming forward not only is trying to help fund the gap or to bridge that gap as we invest in affordable housing, but it's keeping some of the best practices. It's keeping some of the things that we did better in our response. And I think that's a really important piece as we move forward. So again, Keith, thanks to you and your team for all your work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. And I'm going to turn over the County Manager O'Connor for closing comments, and then we'll take questions from commissioners. County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put a fine point on a couple of the pieces you've heard here today on this goal of, as you mentioned, we need to keep this issue front and center as the legislature reconvenes and as we look at a cliff coming our way in May. There are not the resources locally to fully address the 450 bed shortage that Ramsey County will otherwise face in May. And I think we need to be expressing that everywhere we go as we go forward. The optimistic side of me says, as a community, Commissioner McDonough explained where we used to be. And I think we've seen what happens when we don't pull together in terms of the work. We see the challenges of the past few years. And what we've seen during COVID is a system that is truly providing options to people to be able to enter into an emergency system that then also is working to move them into more stable and permanent solutions. I think our goal is to not backstep as we make massive investments in affordable housing and ask the state and other partners to do the same. And so 450 is our number. And every month we hope to come back and whittle away at that through the opportunities that either already exist or through progress that can be made. We thank the board for their help and for the chair and Commissioner McDonough in his role as the Continuum of Care chair for helping to lead some of those efforts with the city of St. Paul, suburban communities, and other places that recognize there is a need in more than just downtown St. Paul related to housing supports. And we will continue to provide information as we go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I also want to highlight, we're talking about when the money runs out in May, but as we're talking about shelters, in particular, the family shelter, that means that, for backwards planning, we'll have to, if we don't have funds secured or a plan in place, we have to notify families that they can find alternatives much earlier than that, as well as staff. So there really is a sense of urgency. It isn't just the cliff in May, it's what builds up to that cliff in May. So with that, I want to turn it over to Commissioner Carter, who has her hand up.
Thank you. And I had my hand up following the director's presentation, just to say thank you so very, very much for clarity with respect to the challenge that is before us. Many have said it's a challenge that existed before the pandemic. We saw it far more clearly, and we saw our way to creating solutions for the pandemic period, but also bridging toward beyond pandemic, and that is so important. You've presented a clear pathway toward a presentation of solutions that this board can support, acknowledging clearly that we cannot be the only ones in this game, that our partnerships are important to us, that our advocacy for the resources that we are going to need must be a part of this as well. But overall, I just wanted to voice my support, and looking around the screen at others, I know the support that we all have for ensuring the sustainability of the size of solution that we need. And not only the size, but the quality, the respect, and the dignity for people to enable us to bridge from the point of need to a point where we're able to help many move toward the affordable housing solutions that we are also teeing up. But that whole package is very important. I appreciate that you'll come forward then with that manner of assisting to sustain to the extent that we can, and also seeing the solutions and the assistance that we need so that we can all be in that game together. I appreciate that you will present a solution that is about that sustainability for what we need today, and also a future that looks different than what we came into pandemic with. Very, very much thanks and appreciation for all of the work that's done and that is to come, and recognizing it did take the organizing, of a department such as this to focus in on that need. The work that's been done by Commissioners McDonough and also Commissioner Mattis Castillo to focus on affordable housing solutions that are needed, so we're not always sheltering our way out of this, but also knowing that shelter is such a very important part of the solutions that we need. So I look forward to hearing that proposal that will come back to us to ensure we're ready for that May opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. I don't see any other hands on this topic, so we're going to move on to County Connections. County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I sent you the information regarding the National Day of Racial Healing events that are occurring that Director Corbett mentioned this morning. It's in your inbox should you want to attend one or both of those. I also sent you a fuller note regarding the service delivery transitions that have been made out of the East Building, back-end service delivery occurring at Plato, and front-facing service delivery occurring out of Metro Square in downtown St. Paul. That started today. That started this morning, right around the time we were all getting going here. And I want to give a shout out to the hundreds of staff that this has impacted in significant ways, either by being asked to be in new spaces or having others move into spaces near you. It's challenging for everybody, and yet people found their way through it. We have a shuttle bus running to help ensure staff can get back and forth. We had the financial assistance services director standing in front of the East Building today, helping direct traffic at the outset to ensure that people knew where to go, both individual employees and residents, which shows the level to which everybody has been working together on this moving forward. So our downtown service center is now over at Metro Square and operational. And the other details to it all are in here. Please let me know if you have questions. There is also a link to the website, ramseycounty.us/downtown service center. Lays out all of the information related to this. We're working to use our website as a tool for all the information as we move forward. And In addition to Elizabeth Holzman and Scott Williams, who I've mentioned here for their work, I do want to give special acknowledgement to Department Directors Ling Becker, Katrina Masser, and Tina Curry as well. They've been deeply entrenched in this in different ways throughout the entire piece. They have been instrumental to making it happen, and my hope is it goes well. Finally, on trial prep, we did meet last week with the governor's office and the city of St. Paul. We have a coordinated series of conversations that will be occurring there as well. Homelessness, service delivery, and ensuring that remains functional throughout the trial is a top priority for everyone, as well as signage at Metro Transit locations in downtown was something that the governor's office pledged to help us connect into and work with as we're doing all that we can to make sure people are not upended during one of the busiest enrollment and re-enrollment months of the year. Final note from me, Omicron continues to challenge us on a staffing level. I'm happy to report that we haven't had any large scale outbreaks to the extent that we've been unable to continue service delivery, although that is a reality that some operations have faced in places. And kudos to everyone for doing what they can to mitigate spread of virus when possible and keep us operational. We are making changes, and you saw some notes to this effect last week, asking departments, where do we need to think about staying as spaced out and distant as possible? What do those look like during this month? And really around, these are more around the margins in the time being, but we're going to be doing that through February 15th and reassessing where we're at in the public health space in the meantime. I'll continue to bring updates here as needed, but things like one example, Tamarack Nature Center has been doing some programming that involves the lobby, and it's been getting too crowded, and there are concerns about what that means in the current environment. We're stepping back from some of those types of spaces, but we're doing it on a case-by-case basis. There's no widespread directive to the entire organization. We're going to be thoughtful and learn from the past 2 years. Thanks for all your support, and that concludes the updates, Madam Chair.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Commissioner Carter, I see your hand up. Is that a question? No? Okay. With that, we will go to our outside committee reports. We'll start with Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a lot to report, but I do want to, again, I think the biggest area that is of concern and that I am involved in at the national, international, local, regional levels is regarding the environment. Locally, Commissioner Fretham and I were on a call with the Water Gremlin folks, well, the Neighborhood Concerned Citizens Group, the group of women who have held strong and have been really national leaders on this. And I know that Commissioner Fretham can speak to that as well. Making sure that what happens with, the TCE ban is one thing, but there's ongoing issues there that we need to make sure are monitored when that conditional use permit or when the permit comes out, trying to make sure that everyone in that area and beyond that actually are really being considered and what it really means to the environment. Leading into that, then the Environment, Energy, and Land Use Committee and looking at the major issues there. And I guess that kind of brings me back to Chair Matas Castillo, your charge this year regarding climate change. Sometimes people get concerned when you say climate change, they don't really understand it. But when you think about it, all you have to really think about is the environment. I don't know anybody that says, gee, I don't like looking at a beautiful sunset or a lake or, even if you're not an outdoors person, you still understand how important the environment is, how important clean water and clean air is, because that's very personal. And so I think I'm hoping that we can get people to understand that the little things that they do, the big things that we do in many different areas really have an impact on the environment. And so, yes, it's about climate change because it's more imminent, but it's the little things that we can do and the big things that we can do as a county and as a nation that are going to make a difference. Because if we don't deal with this, and I know I've said this before, if we don't deal with this, nothing else matters. Because if we can't breathe and we don't have clean water to drink, we're in a lot of trouble. But there's a lot that's happening, and that's the positive side of this. there's a lot that is happening and a lot that we can do. And I'm really looking forward to, I mean, we've already done a lot at Ramsey County, but I think the focused effort is going to be great. And I'll end with, my grandson was doing a lesson, and we do different things. And anyhow, one of the things was about, it was a test basically on what is fact and what is an opinion. And so he was reading through these things. And so I looked at them and I check it out afterwards and I say, honey, this one really isn't a fact. And the statement was something to the effect of, everyone cares about pollution. And I said, you know, unfortunately, that is an opinion, because, and he just looked at me and he's like, well, it should be a fact. Everybody should care about pollution. And I said, well, that's because you're around me a lot, probably. But the reality is, thinking about that afterwards was like, it should be a fact. Everyone should care, because it matters to them, it matters to their children and their grandchildren and future generations. And that's what climate change and the environment is all about. So I wanted to share that with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Carter.
Thank you. There's a lot going on in this past week in the community as well as in Ramsey County. I will just share that I, along with Commissioner McGuire, were a part of a St. Paul Children's Collaborative meeting this past week, and we were able to hear from both grant-funded and Ramsey County areas where children who are at risk of abuse or neglect, or who are in shelter or in out-of-home placement because of the risk to their safety. We're able to hear from those folks who are working in that way, supported by the Children's Collaborative and here at Ramsey County. I want to thank Chris Hurla from Ramsey County. And also we heard from Anda Young Center from Face to Face and from Youth Perspectives, and thank them all for their presentations and the work they are doing. Out in the community, there is much going on, focused of course on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King holiday this past week. A few of the things that I would like to mention were a Central High School forum focused on equity in high placement classes or advanced placement classes. I am so proud of the work that the students at Central in the Black Student Union and also a part of the National Honor Society, their equity committee, are doing to elevate consciousness and awareness of this segregation that continues not only at Central, but at many of our schools, not only in this area, but across the nation, of course, across the world. They are raising attention, working with their teachers and their communities to elevate the opportunity for students of color, and specifically for Black students who have long been excluded, to attend and to progress and achieve through those classes. So much has to do with the manner in which education is constructed as to whether or not it applies to those students and feeds their hunger for education and achievement. And they are focused on working in that regard. I also attended the Martin Luther King celebration, which is an annual, the 32nd annual, that General Mills and the United Negro College Fund conduct each year. I was pleased that a student from St. Paul, well, I call her a student because she was a student with my children, Laura Coates, who is a CNN reporter, was the keynote speaker there. And Laura spoke to the theme of urgency, the fierce urgency of this moment. It was an excellent presentation and included talent and speakers from throughout our area as well. I attended the Sweet Potato Pie annual event. And I don't know if many on the screen are familiar with the Sweet Potato Pie, work that is done by Rose McGee. In any case, pie, which is an African-American traditional dessert, brings us together, gathers us, and feeds our soul to do the work that we need to do to ensure racial equity. There were a couple of people, or actually 3 in Ramsey County, who were voted to receive pies. You don't know who you are in Ramsey County organization right now, but you will by tomorrow, because you'll be receiving your pie. And thanks for the work done to uplift equity. That in recognition of the work that all of us, all of our staff and community are dedicatedly doing together, fighting so that we will win. Let's see, last of all, I want you to know that I, along with other members of the Ramsey County community, attended the funeral of Willie Cook. Willie Cook, who provided custodial services for us for many years, passed away. We've talked about it already. And before, he was recognized at the ceremony by his loved ones and parishioners, and a wonderful, wonderful statement about the work that he did in community here at Ramsey County was provided. I think that due to the fact that so many of us have sent our thoughts about Willie, they were well able to encapsulate and recognize his fellowship in the Ramsey County community. Thank you very much. I'll cut it short there. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner McDonough.
Madam Chair, I'll just share, I know as all of us get an opportunity, last week was my opportunity to join County Manager Ryan O'Connor and welcoming new employees. And I just, it's just always a bright spot when we get to do that. Looking at the faces, some apprehension, excitement as they join the Ramsey County team, but it's able to bring a message from the board about our welcoming environment, about the journey and path we're on to deal with and address a lot of the issues that, have come before this board today and will continue to. But I always appreciate those opportunities, and it was a bright spot last week. So with that, Madam Chair, no further report.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. And I did it again, and I skipped Commissioner Fretham, so I'm going to go back. I blame being distracted. So, Commissioner Fretham, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Manis Castillo. A few brief updates. First, sharing some sad news. Third time I've had to share this, but one of our city leaders, Shoreview City Council member Terry Quigley, passed away last week. He was a delightful human being who served on Shoreview City Council for over 20 years. And his loss is felt very hard in our community. So thoughts with his family right now for their loss. I was also able to participate. Arden Hills and Shoreview Chamber of Commerce had a breakfast where our sheriff, Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher, spoke. So got to listen in on that. And finally, doing some work this week with Generation Next, which is our collaborative within education and business leaders and community leaders. And our early childhood group is working to advance changes in partnership with the governor's expected proposal of investment in childcare infrastructure to help prepare Minnesota for potential federal investment through Build Back Better. So doing some work in that realm through Generation Next. And that's all for my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. Thank you for that update, and our thoughts are out to the Shoreview Council members family, for sure. Now, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, our thoughts and prayers go out to Councilmember Quigley's family. I want to just echo the work that the St. Paul Children's Collaborative is doing. Commissioner Carter mentioned that. That was the meeting we went to. I just want to recognize we have a new chair of our collaborative, Emmanuel Donaby, and I'm not sure that we mentioned it last meeting, but he was a community member who is now chairing the collaborative for this year. And just to note that Krista Anders, who was working with Lori Davis as our consultants in that work, has retired, and in her place, Nicole Martin Rogers, who was with Wilder Foundation, has now stepped into that role. So Nicole Martin Rogers and Lori Davis are going to be the consultants for the St. Paul Children's Collaborative and continuing to do great work there. So just wanted to let people know that. Some meetings that are coming up tomorrow, our school district, the Independent School District 623, which is the Roseville area schools, is having their quarterly meeting on Zoom this time tomorrow morning. So if any of you have any part of Roseville School District, it's a great meeting where they bring together all levels of government to touch base and to hear what's going on with our schools. So I know that will be an interesting meeting. Our legislative team has continued to meet with Commissioner Manis Castillo, myself, and Jenna O'Rourke and Melissa Finnegan. the Senate bonding tour. I won't say hosting, but we are able to be a stop on the Senate bonding tour at the St. Paul College on Thursday, where some of us will be presenting some of our different legislative priorities, our specifically our bonding priorities with River's Edge and our Bruce Vento Trail. And so just wanted to note that the bonding tour will be hearing from Ramsey County on those projects. The League of Women Voters is having their conversation with constituents, which a number of us will be on Thursday night. That's going to be on Zoom as well. The Ramsey County League of Local Government, which you're all invited to, is having their meeting on Friday morning at 7:30. That will be on Zoom as well. That is with the legislators in our area. So we'll be hearing updates on our legislative agenda to ask them to support all of our collective work, and that's around mental health. And then we'll be hearing from them what their issues are. So that's Friday morning at 7:30, also on Zoom. And then just to finally say, the AMC Board of Directors will be meeting this Friday, and that actually will be in person at 10 o'clock at the AMC building. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. I appreciate that. And Commissioner Reinhardt, I think you have a comment on this point, so go ahead, Commissioner Reinhardt.
I just wanted to clarify, Commissioner McGuire, you mentioned the League of Women Voters, and normally I think we have been part of the panel, but the way I read it, it wasn't the case, that we are invited to be there and participate, but we are not part of the panel this year. Is that correct?
I'm getting more information on that. I know it's all on Zoom. I was thinking we were going to be doing some answering of questions, but you're right. I'm going to be there, and I was thinking we would be part of a discussion, but I'll get some clarification on that.
All right.
I was
Thank
looking
you.
for the questions because you're absolutely right. We usually have a series of questions, and I've been getting some background on that, and I just we were going to talk about it after this meeting, actually. So
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe
All right. Well, I'll look forward to that.
Maybe Commissioner Manis-Castillo knows more about it, but I'm trying to find out more information on it. But thank you.
It'll be a great event, whether we're there as participants or panelists. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. And we'll look for more information. Commissioner Ortega. Okay, thank you. So just have one quick, now I have to pull my email back up. One quick update from the chair's report. And that is that next Tuesday will be our annual strategic planning session, and wanted to just share updates about that. And I apologize, my email just closed out, which had all the information for me to share with you. And that's that, so it'll be next Tuesday from 11 to 3. We will have a lunch break in the middle of that from 12 to 1. We do ask that only commissioners attend, along with the county manager and policy director. And so it will be published, as we have to do. It will be a virtual strategic meeting, but it is for us to do that work. As of course, it will be recorded and available to the public after. We will do our 22 strategic planning and then do a deep dive in the strategic priorities around climate mitigation and climate resiliency. And so just wanted to prepare you for that. That is coming for next Tuesday. And just to be prepared and come engaged, ready to have a conversation. This is truly strategic planning. We don't have a mapped out plan already, but this is really our opportunity to work together and bring your ideas on how we move forward. And so that is for next Tuesday. This afternoon at 1:30, we have a closed session about the developer interests on the South Maplewood properties, and that will be at 1:30. With that, and no other comments or updates, we are adjourned for this morning, and we'll see you back at 1:30.
Good meeting. Take care.
Thank you.
Good meeting now. Thank you.